And the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes, and I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've read the minutes and find everything to be in order. My motion is to approve the minutes from last month.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up is our investment report. There's Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can see from our report we've had a significant increase in interest rates. LGIP jumped from 19 to 37 basis points, and our bank rate was 30. The Fed moved 50 basis points yesterday, so today our bank rate jumped to 60. So we're at 60 basis points after today on the bank rate. So that will probably continue in the next few months. And we'll continue to reallocate money based on which of those provides us the highest return, because there's still nobody wants to bid on a CD, so those are kind of our options.
Okay.
Motion to approve the report.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions for Mr. Beatty? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next is a fund condition report. Lisa?
Okay, I'm going to start with the development tax, adequate facilities tax. For the month of April, we, for combined total, we received $555,000 compared. That was last April. This April was $504,546. To bring our year-to-date is $4,455,442 compared to last year at $5,304,000. Our cash balances at the end of April totaled $484,360,000, with $433,895,000 being operating funds, $50,465,000 being borrowed funds. If there's no question, I will move to the review of revenue. And all areas are green. That just tells you that we will be making adjustments for revenue when we get together next month to improve our estimated ending fund balance. At the end of, at the end of April, we're still looking at 1.6 million. Where we're trending on loss of the prisoner board, but we've got other revenues that's going to make that up. At the end of April, as far as property tax revenue, we estimate at 95.5, but yet we are at 98%. That's where you're seeing a lot of the lines of total local taxes hitting 100% because we have already hit our estimate, the way that we budget that. Solid waste in total, solid waste in the drug fund has already hit 100% of their estimated revenues. That's my report.
Any questions? Well, Commissioner Johnson?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Stevens, thank you. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Next up is the risk management financial report. Welcome, Mr. Elam.
For the Fund 264, month of April 2022, your revenue, $7,940,431. Expenses, $6,043,561. Revenue less expenditures, a positive $1,896,870. For the calendar year 2022, you have a total of revenue $32,817,768. Expenditures $26,318,398. Revenue less expenditures, you have a positive $6,499,369. And for the fiscal year 21-22, totals, revenue, $69,996,303. Expenditures, $69,803,305. Revenue less expenditures, a positive $192,998. For the 266 fund, for month of April 2022, you have workers' comp, $7,842.20. OJI, you have $16,834.55, for a total of $24,676.75. Year-to-date, workers' comp's $58,637.82. OJI is $420,070.73. Your total for the year-to-date is going to be $478,708.55. Legal expenses for the county attorney, you have for the month of April, $48,332.67. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Do I hear hand second? Any questions? Hear none, call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Please continue.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have the recommendations for the Insurance and Risk Management Committee. The first item you should have is Admiral Insurance. That's for our dental professional liability with a premium of $6,425. You want to take all these together?
Unless I hear someone from the committee, Mayor.
Okay.
Continue now.
All right, and on the second page, you'll have the volunteer firefighters accident coverage, and you'll have, for Access, you'll have a premium of $4,024. Now, this is the volunteer firefighters that volunteer for Rutherford County. The next page, you have the Rutherford County Government Board of Education Workers' Comp Bond. $5,000 is what that bond cost is. I have tried to get that reduced, or we've got it reduced some, but I've tried to get it taken off of there. But because we still have workers' comp claims, we have to have the bond. And then the last thing is the broker fee for Assured Partners, $45,000. Those were the 4 recommendations from the Insurance Committee.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Question. On the
Mr.
volunteer firefighters coverage, the $4,024, what does that cover? Is that one person, a group, or what?
On the volunteer firefighters, those are the ones that volunteer, it's my understanding, for Rutherford County, because the other volunteer firefighters are covered under their individual firefighters departments.
So this covers the ones that volunteer with Mr. Farley,
Yes.
not our
There's a-
individual
There's a
stations?
gap. You have a gap. You know, you have some that wouldn't be covered because they're not like with Kittrell or Christian or something like that. These cover those volunteers.
Thank you.
These guys are essentially paid on call personnel. Am I correct there? No? You say they're not being paid, compensated? Okay. So they are volunteers. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. Do we know why his fee went up 100%?
Well, the first 3 years it was 22. He had a clause in there that he could change that fee. We met with Mayor Ketcher and I and him, and I can just tell you they bought the business the first 3 years because the 22,000 is we do a lot with him. You have approximately $1.5 billion just in property and casualty. You saw the numbers we have with with workers' comp, and it was a steal at 22. So,
Any other questions about these proposals? And we have a motion and a second. No more discussion.
So moved.
No, we do have a motion and a second on this already. So, hearing no further discussion, call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
okay, and the last item that I have, you'll see a budget transfer from other salaries into part-time employees, and this is within budget $6,000. And what I'm trying to do to get to the end of the year, with the schools uncoupling, going to the state, our office still has to handle everything for 2022 and move forward, but then there's going to be some RFPs that we're going to have to do. There's just going to be a lot of work as this uncouples, and looking for just that part-time person that has some good, ideally would be somebody that has a lot of, what's a part-time job that has some experience in contracts, RFPs, and things like that. So that's what the request is.
Okay, you've heard the request.
I'll make a motion to approve.
They have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Are there any questions for Mr. Elam?
This is not a question so much as just a comment. I don't know that we've talked about it with this group about the fact that the school board has chosen to go to the state plan, and that's part of what you mentioned it here, but I just don't know if this group knows the impact of that.
Yes, they have decided to, as of 1/1/2023, to go to the state plan, and so we still have to conduct business for 2022. All the way up to December, and trying to get, there will be some RFPs that we're going to have to do, and there's quite a bit of work to get uncoupled. They will have an annual enrollment starting in October. I believe this when the state's, ours is October also. So there's a lot of work between us and the state in order to get the information to them and make sure it's done in a timely manner.
I know the school board, in their budget, they're going to be asking for some additional personnel to help manage that state plan. So do you see there being any reduction in your office, or you feel like you're going to stay at the same staff level? Have you considered that at all? Do you have any idea? And you may not be ready to answer that. I just wasn't sure.
Oh, I'm ready to answer it. There's a lot of stuff, and to be quite honest with you, I'm still diving into what have we got to do to uncouple 6,000 people and get them entered into the state, and what there's still some things that we're going to have to deal with. Part of it is going to be our retirement eligibility. We'll have to look at our retirement eligibility because the state's retirement eligibility doesn't match the county's retirement eligibility. So the retirement eligibility that we have, the whole documents that we have, will have to be looked at again and come before y'all in order to buy. I mean, it needs to be done before 2023, because you have teachers that's going to want to retire starting in 2023, and we've got to have something to be able to explain to them what it is that they'll be able to do, because it doesn't match up. I mean, it just with the state. They have the opportunity to go to the state, but you have those that, without getting in a lot of detail, but you have those that, because of cutoff dates and because of them being able to go have, with Rutherford County, pharmacy. If they go to the state, they don't have pharmacy. So they've worked their time and they've eligible, but now they're with the state. So we'll have to look at, I mean, there's just a lot of uncoupling and documents we'll have to review and then come back to the insurance committee and to this committee and the county commission to get, approval.
And this is just an observation on my part, and you can share it or agree or postpone, but it just feels like with the level of work that your department's going to have to do, and there's so many new things that you're going to be touching, that it feels like it's probably going to be at least 18 to 24 months before you could even reevaluate what the impact of the reduction is, if it's going to make an impact on your staff, because there's going to be that level of work, it feels like.
It's more than just starting 1/1/23.
Shifting bodies.
It doesn't
It's more
end.
than shifting bodies.
It doesn't end then. No, it doesn't. So.
Okay. Further request? We have a motion.
Yep, we have a motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next is a general fund budget amendment and transfer for fire rescue. Welcome, Mr. Farley. He's got two requests. I told him to go ahead and put them together unless I hear objection. Somebody wants to
Diesel
split
one
them.
first, Chief.
Let me know.
Get the diesel one first.
Okay. I have a budget amendment to request money out of the gasoline fund, requesting $43,725 into diesel and requesting $3,150 into gasoline. And the next budget amendment is to move $13,658 out of part-time into overtime. Will be $12,398 for overtime pay and $1,260 for the pensions.
This was approved at Public Safety.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And a second, Commissioner Piercy. Any questions for Chief Farley? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the general fund budget transfer for emergency management.
Planning and engineering should be next. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Number 8.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. Excuse me there. General fund budget amendment for planning and engineering. Sorry about that, Doug.
Felt like you was up, down for a couple seconds there.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Similar to Chief Farley's request, we are asking for $3,000 from the gasoline item in the general fund to be moved to our gasoline item in the planning and engineering budget. Of course, I don't think anybody forecasted the gas prices doing what they're doing right now, but this should be enough to get us through the rest of the fiscal year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second for the request. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens? Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Now, get to that one I skipped ahead on. This is a general fund budget transfer for emergency management.
Chairman, you saw me jump a little ahead of
Hey,
time.
hey, that's
I
good.
apologize. I messed you up. Mayor, commissioners. Emergency Management is requesting budget transfer of $399 other contract services of $25,000 and move it into other supplies and materials $499. This is to complete a speaker system within the emergency medical EMS's station so they can hear the calls better and finish that project and to finish out the rest of the budget year.
This request did come through Public Safety and was approved unanimously. If no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner. And a second. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, next is a general fund transfer for PAWS.
Good evening. My request is similar to others, asking to move $12,000 within our line items for gasoline to finish out the rest of the budget year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And second. Any questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Chairman, I was going to ask the director, how is your staffing?
We have been able to hire 3 kennel attendants, and we have a volunteer coordinator starting Monday. We're still down 4 animal control officers, 2 full-time kennel attendants, and 1 full-time vet assistant. Yes, sir. A little good news. The officers are the ones that I'm most concerned about now, getting those numbers back up. Yes, sir.
Okay, next on the agenda is an amendment to the Teen Learning Grant for Youth Services. And I guess Lisa, oh, okay, welcome.
Yes, I have an amendment to extend the Teen Learning Center grant for 1 year. This is a pass-through funds with the Department of Children's Services in the amount of $417,696.
Okay, you've heard the request. Are there any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, on, this is for 2022 or 2023?
2023. It will go until June 30th, 2023.
Now, I noticed as far as this, that it kind of, is it end or, according to this document, it's the last year?
We've had, I think this is maybe the 3rd extension, but this program has been going, this contract, for many years.
So more than likely, more
Yes,
funds.
more than likely it will continue.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Have a motion and a second. Do we have any further questions on the request? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next is a general fund budget transfer for the Election Commission. I see Farley here. The other Farley, we've got a room full of them tonight. Welcome.
Good evening. I have a budget transfer to move $10,000 out of postage into data processing equipment to purchase replacement network appliances and enhance security and redundancy for the Election Commission.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and tell me what a MERAKIS, Merax.
Meraki, it's a security appliance that actually ties the networks together.
Piece of hardware.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? I have one, and just off the top of my head here. Are our machines attached to the internet at any time?
No,
As
sir.
far as transferring and all? I've
No,
had
sir.
people ask me that, and I've told them I thought not, but
They're not connected together, they're not connected to the internet. We carry it the old-fashioned way. We print the tabs from the machines, they hand carry them to our office, read the tally cards, and there's no internet activity involved with the voting machines anywhere through the process.
we're not going to be hacked, so.
No, no.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Farley. All right. Item 13, General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendments. Audrey, welcome.
Spurlock's over at the school board meeting going on right now, so I have to present to you these two amendments for the General Purpose School Fund. Our first budget amendment that we're requesting from this body is this budget amendment requests funding for an additional $1,000 for each full-time employee and an additional $500 for each part-time employee of Rutherford County School System. That is to be paid from the General Purpose School Fund. It's to be paid at the end of the current school year to compensate for the additional duties assigned to our current school staff due to low staffing levels, as well as the Delta and Omicron variants of the COVID-19. Funding for this will come from a portion of local option sales tax that has been collected over the current fiscal year's revenue budget projections. A separate similar amendment will be prepared for employees paid from the School Nutrition Fund for this additional duty pay, and an ESSER 3.0 amendment will be prepared for Rutherford County School employees paid from the Federal Projects Fund 142 fund. This additional payment is contingent on the following stipulations being met by the school employee. 1, the employee must be a current full or part-time, not PRN, Rutherford County School classified or certified employee, or be hired as such no later than January 4th of the current school year. 2, the employee cannot have a break in employment from Rutherford County Schools between January 4th, 2022 and May 27th, 2022 in order to receive 100% of the additional pay. And 3, the employee remains an active employee on an active employee status during this time period, available for and reporting for duty as assigned by Rutherford County Schools unless having an excused absence and on paid leave. The recommended motion is to authorize an additional $1,000 per Rutherford County School full-time employee and $500 per Rutherford County School part-time employee as detailed above to compensate for additional duties brought about during the current school year by low staffing levels as well as the Delta and Omicron variants of COVID-19 for a total increased expenditure cost in the GPS fund of $6,094,620 for GPS fund employees. And I want to point out that at the very beginning of the school year, we had utilized some ESSER 3 funding to provide these employees, if they stayed the entire year, $1,000 apiece, $500 that was paid near Christmas time, and the other $500 will be provided at the end of the school year. This would be in addition to that to give them the full-times $1,000 more, or the part-times $500 more, if they stayed with us and completed the requirements as detailed in this amendment.
This was discussed at Health and Ed. We made a motion to approve, so I'll make it so moved.
I have a motion to approve. Here, second.
Want to hear both of these amendments? Or there is 2 amendments. Do you want to hear both of them at the same time or take them one at a time?
I'll have to declare Rule 10 on one of them.
Fine.
So do you
We can
still
just
want them
take this
together?
All right. So you second?
I'm declaring Rule 10. I'll second and declare Rule 10.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second.
Yes.
If I understood that correctly. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, go ahead.
Second amendment before you is amendment to budget for Rutherford County Schools, summer learning and summer bridge camps on January 22nd, 2021. The Tennessee General Assembly enacted the Tennessee Learning Loss Remediation and Student Acceleration Act to address the learning loss of students due to COVID-19 related school closures. Though through this new law, all school districts in Tennessee are required to offer learning loss remediation summer programs for students in grades K through 8, starting in summer 2021. This GPS fund budget amendment is to budget $5,738,667 in state and federal funding for the operation of this state-mandated summer camp for the summer of 2022. The camp will host over 4,200 RCS K through 8 students during the month of June at 13 school sites and include funding for summer camp salaries, SRO and crossing guards, and transportation of students. Funding for school student nutrition services is in a separate budget amendment in the school centralized cafeteria fund, and funding for the high school summer credit recovery school, along with non-payroll items for the K-8 summer camps, will be accounted for in the federal projects fund utilizing ESSER 3 and IDA funds. Recommended motion is to amend the general purpose school budget as presented for a total amount of $5,738,667 for the operations of the 2022 RCS Summer Learning and Summer Bridge Camps to comply with the Tennessee Learning Loss Remediation and School Acceleration Act. Funding for this amendment will be 100% derived from other state education funds. And the reason, like I said, this before, a portion of this funding is federal money, but because it's passing through the state and the state's putting some state funding with it, requires it to be budgeted in general purpose school fund instead of, if it was pure federal, we could put it over in the federal projects fund. This is very similar to what I brought before you about this time last year for the first year of these camps.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any questions for Mr. Beaudry? Commissioner?
How many children do you estimate to be at the summer school?
Around 4,200, sir, is what we're anticipating for enrollment for this year's summer school, and that's for the K through 8. We also have at high school level for credit recovery that we're doing additional credit recovery services for that, but that's going to be completely 100% in the federal projects fund and not including this amendment.
Thank you.
How many facilities will these be taking place in?
We have 13 facilities, and some elementary, some middle school, and that will be the ones for the K through 8. Then we have Blackman High School, and Laverne will have some items going on in the high school for credit recovery.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Doug. Okay, next is the general fund budget amendments for the sheriff's office.
Good afternoon. I'd like to recognize revenue received from a weapons trade of seized and surplus weapons. We received $36,575. We'd like to take $10,000 and place it in our in-service line item and $26,575 and place it in our law enforcement equipment line item.
Heard the request. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, you want to discuss the?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, all of you may know or have heard that we lost due to a fire our washer and dryers at the jail. So the Correctional Work Center has been doing double duty by having to take all the laundry from the jail over to Correctional Work Center, and now it's stressing that, so we had to order a new dryer over there. However, there was some delay in, we carry a $100,000 deductible on our property and casualty policy. What was the total claim, Steve?
$189,700.
$188,000. So we were trying to expedite this before we burn up the rest of them over at the Correctional Work Center. There was some argument back and forth with the insurance company and the adjusting company who was going to order it. We need to go ahead and get it done. So we went ahead and told them to go ahead and get it in. We would just pay the deductible, and so it's been. What's the time limit on it, Steve? Getting them in?
Within a few weeks.
Yeah, you have received the check from the insurance company.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So the check is, I don't know if you've got the check.
Yes, we have
Okay.
received the check
All
from the
right, so we
insurance company.
received the check. We just need authority to go ahead and pay the deductible.
So we have a request to take this money that's been remitted by the insurance to pay the cost of the.
The check was $89,716.08.
So we're needing an
100,000.
amendment for $189,000 to pay for it,
Yes.
to pay, and then recognize the $89,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
So the $100,000 from unassigned fund balance, I mean, that's where it'd have to come from.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So that's the entry. And so the request is recognize the revenue, appropriate 189, the balance coming from unassigned fund balance.
Correct.
I told them to go ahead and bring that tonight before, so we'll have it ready for next week for full commission.
I was going to say we hadn't seen this at the public safety, but Commissioner Dodd.
I would like to make a motion reflecting Lisa's comments.
Okay, I have a motion, and I assume this is to fund the $100,000 that we're short
Yes.
from
Yes.
ending fund balance.
Right.
So is that your motion? Okay. So I have a motion. Do I hear-
Recognize the revenue and then pay the rest out of fund balance.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Commissioner Piercy. So we have a second. Are there any further comments? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next is a general fund budget transfer for the county clerk. Welcome, Lisa.
This is basically, I'm just starting to clean up for the end of the year. I'm transferring funds from other accounts to my office supplies. That's for ink, paper. We're running short on everything like that this year. And on the second amendment, we're transferring from other contracted services to other supplies and materials. That's $15,000 that we're transferring there.
Okay, you've heard the request. Are there any questions from Ms. Crowell?
Motion to approve.
A motion from Commissioner Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Highway Fund Budget Amendment. Mary, how are you tonight?
Good evening. I'm bringing a budget amendment that our road board approved Monday of this week unanimously. It's for moving $750,000 from our fund ending balance into our asphalt line item account. This is due to the increase of your liquid asphalt and oil prices. So when the gas and diesel price goes up, liquid oil price goes up too. So this is our motion, and this will get us through, hopefully, through the end of June. And just on a side note, we were able to, weather permitting, started a month earlier this year on paving. So we're just needing this increase to get us through the end of June, please.
Heard the request. Commissioner Johnson. Motion to approve.
Second.
And second, Commissioner Piercy. Of course, we saw this at Public Works the other night. So any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens? Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion approved.
Thank you.
Okay, number 17. This is actually a time-saving initiative. Approval of reoccurring grants, and I'm going to let Lisa explain that to us.
Yes, y'all have been here a long time and have seen these grants over and over and over. And so there are 3 grants that come through for Recovery Court, for the mental health, veteran treatment, and drug. And then the other grant is for EMA, covers their salaries. We get these every single year, and so we are asking approval for the departments to go ahead and apply, and that once awarded, that all the ones that are, whoever needs to sign the grant is authorized to accept the grant. All 4 of these, there is not a match. So we just thought this might be easier. It's one less thing that has to go through all the committees all the way through, and it goes to the budget. It's for y'all and us too.
Lisa, there is a match, a 50-50 on that EMPG, but it's always budgeted because it covers their salaries. It's a recurring grant every year.
Salaries.
Yes, it's already budgeted.
I guess I look at it like I do that 4D.
Right.
We are going to have those salaries anyway. This is just to help support and pay for those.
And I think we agreed to do this in the past, and then we just hadn't been able to find where we had done it. So that's why we're coming back and saying, hey, let's vote on this again. That way we've nailed down when we took care of it. You've heard the request. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions for Lisa on this? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank y'all. All right, next is item 18, general fund budget amendment and transfer for various salaried accounts. And Lisa's going to take care of this, basically some cleanup for us.
Yes, this is kind of end of the year cleanup on the salaries to make sure that we don't end up with a overspent line on our salaries. The first one is there's only one person in this line in the sex offender registry, and that person that came in and replaced it was higher paid than what we had budgeted. So we are moving the money from the Sheriff's Department youth service officers where there's funds available and moving that to that other function. The next 2, so that's $4,950 in salaries and the related benefits. The other 2, preservation of records, again, there's 2 people, no, assistant, 1 or 2 people, and 2 people in that line, and one budgeted. I had budgeted 1 step less than what they earned, and so that's the $730. And then the ag extension. This gentleman retired, and so this request of $2,580 for that salary is for the payout of accrued leave. So the request for the 2 preservation records will be required $3,905 from fund balance, from the unassigned fund balance. And stop or move on to the next one.
Hearing no objections, go ahead.
Okay, so that one changes the functions total. But this next set is, there's money within each function. County maintenance, $70. Sheriff for lieutenants, $460. Correctional workhouse sergeants look like they'll be short about $3,900. Disaster relief is to move $11,700 for overtime. And then animal control, $900 for supervisors.
So your total request, 17,030?
Right, that's the total of all those, but they're within functions, so there's money within each of their budgets to cover it.
Okay, you've heard the request. I'll entertain the motion or questions.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Dodd. Second. Thank you, Commissioner Gooch. Any other questions for Lisa? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 19, ambulance service fund budget amendment.
Same cleanup process of $40,000. What happened here is the ambulance we budgeted 3 people and paraprofessionals to move up to supervisors. That was the budgeted request and approval for last year, but yet they did not move those positions until later in the year. So that is making my paraprofessional short. So, but there was money in supervisor where they were budgeted. So that is a request to move $40,000 from supervisor to paraprofessionals.
Likewise, I will make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Dodd. Second, Commissioner Piercy, thank you. Any other questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Now, item 20, fund balance policy update.
Okay, so if you remember when Mark and I got back from our class, we kind of told you that they were going to start writing, the comptroller writing folks up for not having sufficient fund balance. Policies is set at 15, and they in GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, recommendation is 2 months worth of salary. 2 months worth of expenditures, operating expenditures. So that would raise us from 15% to be exact, 16.666. So my recommendation on our fund balance policy is to change it to 17. If you go to page 3 of 5, what is highlighted in yellow is what the recommended change to our fund balance policy for our minimum level of unassigned fund balance.
Do you have any questions or comments from the committee? One thing I want to mention, we had set 15% as our threshold quite a few years ago, and looking at this myself, they jumped 2% over our 15 to go to the 17. And, just thinking myself, we might want to consider going higher than that. But I don't want to consider it tonight until we get an overview to see exactly what our tax rate would end up being. We don't have, well, she's going to be explaining it in a minute. We don't have all the information we need right now. But I'd recommend that we visit this toward the end of the budget, what your feelings are on that. But it could make a difference as whether we have a tax increase or not if we bump this past 17%. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this a law that the General Assembly passed that says we must have this fund balance?
I don't think it's a law. It's going to be a recommendation from the comptroller.
So what happens if we just leave it at 15%?
You'll get a finding. You'll just have a finding with the recommendation. No different from probably where they recommend that we have centralized purchasing. And
Haven't complied in
we've not
40
complied
years.
with that one either.
Have we ever had a problem with the 15%?
No, actually, we're at 30.
I guess I just don't understand why we would require ourselves to have more money in the savings account and cost a couple of $1 million that we're going to need this year to balance our budget. It doesn't.
Okay, so they're trying to make sure that everybody has sufficient fund balance in theirs. I mean, we set ours a minimum of 15, but we typically are above 15, 24, 25, 26, we're up to 30. And I remind you, it was when we were hitting that 30 for a couple of years in a row that you got your AAA bond rating. So that's where it is good for us. Our policy, I mean, that's where our fund balance is, but our policy is at 15. So I'm okay, I'm bringing it to you. If you want to wait,
Just a baseline.
I'm good with that too. You might just see it again later.
Well, you've heard the explanation, and as I said, I would recommend going to the 17%. And part of the reason I'm saying that is, just as we noted, we don't have our revenues yet, but normally we're well above that. But it's up to this committee whether you want to make a change on that or leave it at 15. So,
Or revisit it in,
or what now?
or revisit it in June.
Or revisit it. So what's your thoughts, guys?
My thoughts would be to revisit it in June.
Okay, so no vote on this tonight? Okay. Well, and that being the case, let's move on to Solid Waste Fund Budget Transfer. Item 21. Like I just saw you, Bishop.
Chair, Mayor, Commissioners. This is a transfer request to move money that has been placed, marked for the purchase of a front-load vehicle, and transfer that funds into the purchase of high-capacity compactors.
Those of us that are on Public Works, which are three of us here, have heard this request, and basically this money was set aside for a vehicle that we didn't purchase. And what he's asking to do is buy some compactors that are basically double the capacity of our current compactors. He's hoping to get 3 out of that money. And basically what it would mean to us is that we have less trips. We're having problems keeping up with drivers and getting back and forth to the landfill. It's not just picking it up and driving it there. You've also got a wait time. And this basically would cut in half at least 3 different locations. I don't know where the locations are. Anyway, that's what was presented at Public Works. Guys, do y'all want to comment on that?
Motion to approve.
What? There was a wait time on that truck too, wasn't it?
Right. We couldn't get the truck. That was part of the reason too. So we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you all.
Okay, next is the CDBG Child Care Creation Grant. Lisa, you going to do that one, or Mayor?
Well, if you'll look on page 3, you'll see that this grant comes through GNRC. You'll see the number of communities that are eligible to receive this daycare grant. We've had only 2 applications that came in for that, and there's some restrictions about what is eligible, what's not eligible for the money to be spent upon. But at the same time, if the money's been allocated for Rutherford County, we want to make sure that the opportunity is there for daycare. So the one that was identified The one over on, I believe, St. Andrews, is that in your, St. Andrews, Paul, is that in your district? Paul Johnson? Paul Johnson?
Paul,
Is
St. Andrews in your
St.
district?
Andrews in your district? St. Andrews Street? Is St. Andrews Street in your district? There was a daycare facility over there that applied for this, and I believe they were wanting to build a new building, which makes it ineligible. And I'm not sure whose district has Bellwood. It's Bellwood Baptist Church, I believe, what Reba told me. But anyway, you can see, members, what, if you look on the describe the unique and unusual elements of the project, they're requesting use of funds as a replacement of roof gym. They have no less than 15 or so garbage cans to place to catch the leaks. This is for, the gym is used by the church members, but also members of the community when the daycare is not operating. They take in a lot of low-income students in that area to play basketball Monday through Thursday. You can read that explanation. 40 children in attendance at a Tuesday's group, usually around 25. There's a real shortage of daycare, not just here, but everywhere. So all you're doing tonight would be saying that we want to opt in to the GNRC and allow this to go for submission, and then GNRC would make the determination. I believe that's what Reba told me.
I understand it, and GNRC will help administer the grant.
They'll administer the grant. There's no guarantee that they'll get it, but it just because we opt in as a county, if we had any daycare facilities that wanted to make a submission, then they'll be graded upon GNRC's eligibility list, and then whether or not they make the list. But we as a county have to opt in. So that's all you're doing is saying that, and it then allows them to be eligible to be reviewed to get the grant.
Yeah, the way I look at it is we're asking for permission to apply.
That's great.
Is there a match?
No, it's no match on us. It's strictly, they apply for it. All we're doing is just the county is opting into the GNRC program, and
We
we're
have
just,
to apply for it. I mean,
the county has to apply for it.
Pass-through grant.
Yeah, pass through.
It's a pass-through,
Yeah.
so we're just the vehicle that it passes through. No match on our part.
I believe the daycare is putting in some money that they got through the ARPA program to match the grant that we could potentially receive.
Okay.
And we were, I think, a week or two late even applying, and
I think they extended the
yeah, they
deadline
extended it
for us.
after Reba talked to them. They extended it for 2 weeks, and this would allow them to apply.
So what we're asking for would be a motion to apply for the grant.
So moved.
Here a motion to apply, and a second. Any questions? Call roll.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, item 23, we didn't get on our iPads, but that sheet that was handed out covers this next item, which is an update of the Governor's Direct Appropriation Grant Funding, item 23. I think Lisa's going to take care of that.
The capital project report for 171 at the end of April. But this is the last page of that, and it lists out how much money that was allocated to Rutherford County, $1,770,566. We refer to this as our Gov 21 money. You've heard us talk about Gov 20 and Gov 21. Gov 20, a lot of the restrictions that were on it was released, and I've asked the auditors to confirm, but as I understand it, Gov 21 needs to be ended or obligated. Committed. I'm going to make sure that it's obligated means one thing, expended means another. But we're going to be confirm that we do not turn any money back and that everything is spent. So as of today, April 30th, as far as what was budgeted that's not been allocated is $155,520. But you can see as you go down and see that, let me give you a for example. Emergency management had a vehicle, the budget was $63,000. They have purchased order out of $56,828. So there's some difference there of what was budgeted and what was actually used to date. It's going to be an interesting request. I looked at in the general fund to see what have we spent on capital items. And the mayor may bring a couple other things. I don't know if you had it today or in June.
I do not, but would like to review the proposed budget and go back through, and if we can pull something out that any one of the departments have requested, we'd like to get that in before the end of next month and deplete this 155. You know, we're getting a price on the inflatable boat by Fire and Rescue. Theirs is quite old and has some tears in it, you know, when they do rescue on the rivers, swift water extrication. We're getting a price on that, and there was 2 or 3 other items they were looking at that they had requested in their wants budget. So if we can pull those out, and once we have the pricing, then we could probably come back to you and let you obligate those.
Right.
I know we discussed one at Public Safety the other night where Lynn from Juvenile Services requested some software, which is around $30,000, which would actually bring her up to the same level that the other, our other folks in the county got. So there's another one, but do we have time to revisit this before this?
Yes, and we were trying to we didn't get together today, like, you know, so it's probably best to come back in June. Or between now. I mean, we're meeting a lot.
Can you make us a list and say by?
Mayor will. I mean, we were meeting many times in.
Yeah, well, so we don't have to make a decision tonight, but.
Heads up, we'll want to spend it. In the end, my roundabout way was, if there's any money left, I'd like to be able to have your authority to reimburse or pay for things that are in the general fund that we have paid this year for data out of Cody's budget, out of the OIT budget. It's almost like we paid it there, we're really going to pay it over here and then spend the money. It just helps us out on the general fund. So that was the end of my story. That can wait.
Well, actually, we'll meet next Tuesday to start going over the budget before commission. So if you wanted to make a change, it could still get it on the commission agenda for next week also.
Okay. Well,
that was it.
Any questions from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, we'll revisit this, and let's move on to the next item, which is our overview.
Okay. Here we go, getting ready to start again. So this budget, it's the first time that I feel like it is really undone. It's not everything that I can give to you and say, okay, now y'all just got to tweak it. We have got some outstanding issues. One big one that affects the general fund, ambulance, any fund that gets property tax. I don't have a certified tax rate to apply to assessments. That will come. I estimated 2.9% of the assessments that we had last year during budget process. Well, you know, after I looked at it, that's kind of low, but at least I've got something in the budget to get us started with, but that's got to come back. Also, I don't have the pilot agreement revenue estimated yet. That's going to be a function of what the new assessments are, plus the new certified tax rate. I don't have that. I just estimated something for it of what is currently in there. So that's not a good number. Also, the Nissan Pilot, that's been going on for 40 years comes off or ended February 15th of 2022. So that's another calculation there that's got to be done, and I'm not settled on what that calculation should be. What also affects that particular one with Nissan is the payment that we make to Smyrna. Since Rutherford County receives all of the pilot, but we have to allocate a part to Smyrna. Since I don't know the revenue, don't know the expense, I've got something in there, but it's subject to change. When we were preparing these budgets and the school board, at that time, and what is reflected in the notebook, the school board didn't have their BEP estimate. So that's coming, but it's not in our book that we have now. Let's see. So with the mayor's recommendation of a 15% increase on the salaries, which affects the general fund, solid waste, and ambulance, the way we accomplished it to get people as close to 15% as possible with a lift to the base table of 13% plus their step. For most people, it's ranging anywhere from 14.99 to 15.02, depending on where they are in the steps. The other component to that is if an employee is not due their step, they would see a 13% because of the lift of the table. That is in the budget, along with an estimate for the 2023 insurance premiums for those three funds, the county funds, of 11%. That's in there. It's not set yet, but I had to do something, so we're estimating at 11. So that's some.
And you created another step.
To achieve that, yes, that's what that. I had to go to 22 to make sure everybody did got this lift and step. I had to create another step so that those folks that have been in a step 21, that they saw the 15%. Thank you. Okay, so you've got your notebooks. Under the, I'm not going through everything with you tonight because we will deep dive, but you've got the budget directory about what pages they're in and what account, the functions. The next is the budget calendar. Well, that's no different than what we gave you in January, which y'all approved in January. The next one is the listing of all recommended part-time, full-time salaries. Behind your orange tab are the positions that were requested by departments. There were 101 requests for positions in the general fund that totaled $5,350,000. And these numbers with the positions include what the new lift of 13% would look like. I mean, so that's already in there. Solid Waste requested 14 full-time convenience center operators and 14 part-time employees with a total of nearly 54,000. Ambulance is requesting a net of 19 new positions. That's 20 new positions with one position transitioning out of the ambulance fund into the general fund into the maintenance. The mayor's trying to put all maintenance together under one budget. So behind the yellow is what the mayor is recommending. And you can see all of those. All right. Now, if you would go behind the purple. This first page is what I've used to estimate revenue for sales tax. I mean, not sales tax, property tax. I did a 2.9%, showing that a general fund penny is $1,029,000, school penny at $877,000. I do anticipate those increasing. So with those parameters of where I would say we're starting from, is on the, I'm asking you to look at the estimated change in fund balance as presented. Total revenues of $691,268,000. Appropriations all funds $765,824,000. So we are presenting tonight using almost $74.5 million of fund balance, with a beginning fund balance. And when I say beginning, that is our budgeted fund balance. And what I mean by the budgeted fund balance is that you start with what our actual fund balance is for the beginning of this fiscal year, plus our estimated revenues, less all of appropriations you've done, is the budgeted fund balance. That's what we start with. You see a column here called 21-22 revenue estimate improvement. We'll improve those fund balances as we go through June and re-look at all the revenue estimates and see if we increase. It's what we look at all year long. That's the green that's telling you we are improving revenues. So on this sheet, at the very end, even it's a lot of money, and schools are showing almost 42.4 million use of fund balance. But again, they're going to improve their BEP revenue, so that's going to help that. But even as presented as it is, we're showing a 4.63% fund balance. However, that amendment that you just did tonight of the $6 million is not reflected in this. So all funds are meeting their policies except for the general fund as presented, and this is showing you with a 15%. This is what the 15% requirement would be, is $20,778,000 with off of the $138,522,000 fund balance. We're showing that with this that we would end with 9, we need 20.7. If you flip to the second page, this is the only one I want to talk about tonight because we will be deep diving. But I kind of am showing you what has happened in the general fund. We started our original budget and revenue $109 million and expenditures $122.4 million. That we started this fiscal year using $13,350,000 of fund balance. That's how we have come into the year. We have made increases to our revenue and appropriations, a net of $1,655,000. But the big increases is that ERA, the emergency rental assistance, that is running through the general fund of nearly $28 million that's coming through that. So I'm trying to pull that away so you can see some comparisons between the adjusted budget at 430.22 to what the department's requests are. So that looks virtually the same number. But what is not in the department's requests is an increase. We've asked when we give to the departments, here's your budget, we are just looking at this is where people are, this is where they go on the next existing pay table. So this does not include the increases for the cost of what the mayor's recommendation. You're going to see that. You can see how and it doesn't include the 11% that we've got for insurance. So you see the effect of that between what the department requests of $130 million to the mayor's recommendation of $138.5 million. Okay, so with a 17% fund balance, that's why I'm trying to bounce you between the two pages, still using appropriations at $138,522,000. A 17% requirement is at $23,548,000. A 15% is $20,778,000. So that's where you see that difference of what happens to us on our minimum fund balance. Now, that's where we start. Part 2 from all this is we talked about the revenue loss calculation on the ARPA funds. And I did report that in our last report. I've given all my information to the auditors. I want it pre-audited before we do it, before we move any money out of the ARPA funds into the general fund for revenue loss. So that's yet to come, and the revenue may not even be available until end of June. So we've got a lot of what ifs. So that's my overview. We start Tuesday.
Well, welcome back to the fast lane, right? Lisa, thank you. I think you've done a good job of telling us where we need to go and what we're waiting on. Certified tax rate, pilot program, new assessments, DEP from the schools. ARPA, whether we go with a 50% salary increase, what our insurance premium costs will be, just kind of recap. We've got a lot to look at. Any questions from the committee? Comments? Any other business? Not, let's go home. Meeting adjourned.